So very soon guys, Wrath of the Lich King Classic will finally launch, and I thought I'd go through some really good leveling tips specifically for the Death Knight. I've got 35 tips to go through, so let's quickfire them right now so this video isn't 2 hours long. Number 1, always spread your dots first before you pop down Death and Decay. When you're doing solo play, you need that Ebon Blade buff before you pop Death and Decay down, because that will slightly buff the damage of the first couple of ticks off Death and Decay. Remember to always get Improved Unholy Presence and On a Pale Horse talents and the Unholy Tree when leveling, and obviously you should be leveling in Unholy if you are solo leveling. But when you get Unholy Presence, honestly while you're solo leveling, you will probably be in Unholy Presence most of the time anyway, so you can probably skip that talent. Here is a macro to actually make the pet leap at yourself. The pet can actually leap at friendly targets. This has a number of uses. Say for instance you're getting ganked by a rogue, you can get your pet back to you as fast as possible, or just by simply preventing your pet from pulling more mobs than is needed. Now you will be going for the Desecration macro, which causes an AoE slowing effect on your Plague Strikes. If you're getting quite low in health because you've done a really big pull, you can use Desecration to kite the enemies. And obviously you can also use Chains of Ice if you just need that little bit of breathing room for your runes to come back, so you can jump back in and use a Death Strike to top your health up. Remember, you can blow up your Ghoul for insane AoE damage with the Glyph of a Ghoul talent, since the damage of the Explode on the Ghoul is based on the pet's total health pool. I've got a macro here that will summon the pet after you've blown it up. Now you definitely want to be getting your Brutal weapon, because if you put a Sharpening Stone on that, it's going to be better than any option you can get while leveling. Maybe thinking, what about the Deraged Axe from Ring of Blood 2 questline? Well, with the Sharpening Stone, like I said, it's going to do more damage and have better stats on it. So really, it's going to last you to level 80 until you're swapping to Dual Wield and then getting the Reaper of Dark Souls from Revered Reputation with the Ebon Blade, which leads me on to my next tip. Do the Ebon Blade questline while you are leveling, because you will need that whether you're going two-hander or dual wield for your best in slot weapons pre-raid. Technically the Titan Steel weapons are better, but for quite a lot of gold, for something you are ultimately going to replace pretty quickly in Naxxramas, my personal advice is to just skip the Titan Steel weapons, but it's really up to you. This questline is unlocked by talking to the Death Knight guy on the flying ship. Whether you are Alliance or Horde, it's going to be a Blood Elf or a human. When you're in a situation where you can't get on your mount and clump mobs up together to AoE them down, what you can do is just get your dots up on the mob, wait for it to get to about 30%, and then you can just start moving to the next mob and let your dots finish off the enemy. There's no point sitting there continuing to DPS a mob when you could be running to the next mob. You can very easily solo Ring of Blood on launch for insane experience points. You definitely want to be doing that one in Bloodspec though. What you can also do is do your Ring reputations and your AV reputation turn-ins. So if you get Hyjal and Karazhan rep to Exalted, you can continuously turn in those quests for loads of XP at launch. But you do need to do the Vials of Eternity quest before you actually can unlock the Ring reputation quest for Hyjal. What I'm doing is I'm keeping that quest ready in my quest log to turn in, since it is 19,000 experience points, which is more than the other average quests that you can get. And the same goes for Alterac Valley reputation. You need the Proving Grounds quest ready to turn in, and then you get the multiple turn-ins straight after. However, in my opinion, I think this is only worth doing if, say for instance you turn it all in at Alterac Valley, then you can get quickly summoned to Karazhan and then Canvas of Time, and then straight to Northrend. It's only really worth doing if you can get summoned, in my opinion. Remember to set up a weak aura for Bone Shield and Horn of Winter, and also Raised Dead. I will link those in the description to the weak auras that I use. I would also recommend getting soft weak auras, which are really good, especially the rune ones. My preference is to change the orientation of them though. Remember that there's absolutely no point of death striking when you open combat. Be mindful of this. This does sound pretty basic, but when you're starting off playing a Death Knight, you will make this mistake. There's no point using Death Strike when you are full health. Always wait for your health to actually drop before you start doing Death Strikes when you're soloing an elite enemy, because otherwise you have just wasted your Death Strike. Now, one thing I wouldn't recommend is putting Rune Strike into all of your abilities, because then you're going to get yourself into a situation where you're spamming your abilities, and also you might get quite a lot of Rune Strike procs, and then you need runic power for something like Anti-Magic Shell or Icebound Fortitude, and then you can't do it, and then all your runes are on cooldown, and you can be in a fairly sticky situation. My preference is to actually put Runestrike in a Death Coil macro, so it's in an ability when I know I can freely use runic power and I don't need the runic power for something else, and I can also quickly press it even though I don't have Death Coil ready to go, or I can also use it in the middle of using another ability, because you can use Runestrike, you know, it's off a global cooldown, so you can use it while you are hitting another ability. Personally, I just think this is the better way to do it, but that is just my preferred playstyle. Some people even like having Runestrike on a totally separate keybind. You can also do that. Just remember to always actually put Runestrike on your bars or set up a weak aura to actually show you that it is available for you to press the button to use it. Right, so consumables are absolutely dirt cheap in the auction house right now, but they are slightly going up, so what I'd recommend is to stock up on them right now. So things like the Flask of Relentless Assault, your Roasted Cleft Hoof, although there is an alternative to that which I will mention later, which will be much cheaper, and then also obviously your Andamite Sharpening Stone, which you will be able to use on TBC weapons. Like I mentioned, you should be getting a Brutal Weapon and just keeping that until level 80. Here's Natural Death Pat macro that works, so it will just summon the pet and sacrifice it all in one macro. A lot of people have been jumping into my Twitch chat saying that all the macros don't work. This one definitely does. And by the way, my Twitch is always in the description of all my videos if you want to check it out. I've also got Death and Decay at Cursor macro. This can be used for any at Cursor ability, so it will also work on stuff like Blizzard. Here is a mouse over exist macro. So what it will do is, if you don't have a mouse over and you just have a target, it will cast it on your target. But if you are mouse overing something, it will cast it on your mouse over. So you know you want this for Chains of Ice, Strangulate, Mind Freeze, and definitely things like Death Grip, so you don't have to, you know, manually target something if you want to pull a mob closer to you, or you want to silence some caster mob. That's going to be really irritating. Here are my pet control macros, so I have like a pet attack macro, but it will also leap and stun the target when it is in range. You normally have to, you can't just like press this once for the stun to happen. Normally you have to wait for the mob, obviously the pet to be in melee range, and then pop it again for the stun to actually work, but at least it's all in one button. And then separate to that, you want your pet follow macro. And guys, if you're looking to level extremely fast in Wrath of the Lich King and you're looking for a really good leveling add-on, there's this new add-on that just came out literally yesterday and no other YouTuber is talking about it yet. It's called Rested XP. This add-on has been made by the best speed levelers in the game, literal world record holding people. Check that out in the description. Another add-on I recommend to get is Titan Panel, because it has an inbuilt experience tracker. So you can actually see how much XP per hour you're getting with the current method you are using, so you can tell whether it's total crap or not, and whether you may need to adjust your strategy while leveling. If you actually want the really short TLDR answer on the best way to level in Wrath of the Lich King on launch, what you do is you duo level or trio level in dungeons until level 77, until you can basically get epic flying in Northrend or cold weather flying, and then you go and solo level with epic flying. But should only start open world leveling if you get ahead of everyone, and if you are playing like 20 hours straight on day one, you are definitely going to get ahead of people. Now, when you are leveling, focus on the crit stat over haste and armor penetration. Haste is really great for raiding, and so is armor penetration, but you're not raiding, you're leveling. Haste is good because you know how it affects the gargoyle, but you're not really using the gargoyle that much when you're leveling. What is more important is crit, because that's dramatically going to increase your AoE DPS. Since you have a chance equal to your current crit chance for your dots to blow up and do AoE damage to everyone close by, focus on keeping 4% hit chance while you're leveling, because that will keep you capped on mobs that are one level higher than you on all your special abilities. Now you can go a little bit higher. If you're taking on, let's say for you're level 17, you're taking on level 70 mobs, you know you're going to do that, then yeah, I mean get 5% haste. But the point is, you do not need to be raid hit capped while leveling. You don't need 8% hit chance. You can get away with 3% if you're attacking enemies your same level. Say for instance you are dungeon leveling, you're always going to be the same level as the mobs you are attacking, and then if not higher level, because you're going to stay in the same dungeon for a little bit, and then obviously you need even like less hit chance. So my advice is to just, you know, keep 4%, and then once you've got your 4%, then you can start to gem and enchant just full on strength, basically. Remember, you want to do your Sons of Hodor reputation questline while leveling, because then you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And if you get ahead of everyone, you know, on the day 1, you won't have that much competition doing that quest, whereas later, that first 2 weeks of Wrath of the Lich King, literally everyone is going to be doing that quest, and it's an absolute pain in the backside. The reason why we do this, and the reason why everyone is going to be doing it, is because this is the way that you unlock your shoulder enchants. Or unless you are going for the inscription profession, and then you won't need them. Now, if you're still farming Shard from Magistus Terrace Heroic and you're not getting it, just be patient, guys, and wait for Brewfest to come out, and just get the Brewfest trinkets from Corran Dire Brew. You may as well do it, because it's basically another version of the attack power trinket that you get from badges. Another really good item that you can farm during a Brewfest event is Mudder's Milk. It's basically the same as a roasted cleft hoof as a food buff. It's 20 strength, it's really easy to get and really easy to stack up very, very cheaply. Now, if you're not going engineering, first of all, go engineering, just do it. And then obviously always get your nitro boots and your parachute enchanted like before you start leveling, because nitro boots obviously it goes without saying really that is going to be very useful while leveling, but what's underrated is the parachute. There's a number of situations, right, when you're open world leveling where you need to jump off a huge cliff, and rather than going all the way around or actually literally physically going on a lift to get you down, you could just jump and parachute just before you hit the ground. Now, this isn't so much of a leveling tip, it's really, really useful for every Death Knight to get, particularly Alliance Death Knight, so I definitely recommend farming for the Dire Brew remote. It's very useful if you have a Death Gate and then you're there like, oh crap, my Hearthstone's on cooldown, I'm going to have to either wait or fly all the way to Ironforge or Menethil Harbour to then fly all the way back to Dalaran. But obviously with the Dire Brew remote you can get ported to Blackrock Depths and then just run out of the dungeon, go to the closest flight master and then get back to your major city. Much, much faster than just flying there all the way from Arcarus. If you're doing any kind of dungeon leveling, would recommend getting Nova Instance Tracker to track whether you are going to hit the reset cap, which I will guarantee you will absolutely do in any party 4 or 5 players, because the Wrath of the Lich King dungeons are so ridiculously easy. They absolutely melt when you're in Sunwell gear, and even like, just basic tier 6 gear, to be honest, and the dungeons are just incredibly short. Another question I get asked quite a lot on my stream is, why does my quest log look so good, why is it so big? It's a very simple feature of an add-on called Leatrix Plus, which I've literally had since Classic WoW launch. I even had it on the Nestaria servers. It's a very, very good add-on I definitely would not live without. What it does is it has a number of different features, and I definitely recommend checking it out. But what mainly does here is it widens the quest log so you can see it better and read it better, and it also has Wowhead links right at the top for every single quest. So if you're struggling with something when it comes to that quest, like finding a mob or whatever, you can just quickly copy and paste the link and check out the Wowhead comments. Now, here's a really good one for people who are playing on PvP servers. It's an anti-gank macro. So what it does is it combines Will to Survive and Icebound Fortitude. So you're getting ganked by a rogue, is normally going to stun you. You can trinket that with Will to Survive or your trinket. I mean, it's going to, if you have Runic Power, obviously the issue is if you don't have Runic Power, this won't work, but a lot of the time you are going to get ganked in the middle of combat, aren't you? So you should have some Runic Power banked up, hopefully anyway. But what it'll do anyway is it'll pop Icebound Fortitude pretty much instantaneously with the Will to Survive, so then the rogue cannot stun you again, because it does actually make you immune to stuns. So you can get your pet to stun the rogue, get Chains of Ice, and then get a bit of a gap between you and him, and then you can start actually having a fair fight and with a chance to actually survive getting ganked by a rogue. Now, 33 now, I want to talk about the Kurin Var Village Hub. This is an insane way to get a truckload of XP on the launch of Wrath Classic. So, there is a ridiculous amount of quests to turn in here. I think it's like a total of 6 quests that you can turn in. I've got the 6 quests ready to turn in, but then there's also 4 total quest on pickup items in this area. So if you do everything here, there's 11 quests, I repeat, 11 quests that you can turn in with a few seconds for a truckload of XP, and then you can just jump straight to Northrend. If you don't have a lot of time, or you just simply cannot really be bothered with that much quest prep, at least do this, because it's 11 quests, you quickly turn them in, Hearthstone back to Stormwind or Orgrimmar, get straight to Northrend. There's also an extra quest there where you basically accept it, you go to a cow, turn it in, for another 9,000 XP. It literally takes no time at all. Now, for my number 34 tip. It's important to get on a good layer if you're going to do open world leveling. Now, the best way to do that is to go to Northrend later, because then the game will put you on a later, like a higher layer with less people on it because you got there later. You think about it, you know, the first group of people are all gonna jam pack layer 1, 2, 3 and 4 and so forth. But if you actually get that later, you're gonna get left on a higher layer. This worked for me massively on the TBC launch. There's only a few people running around Hellfire, and honestly it felt pretty empty. I was grinding solo, I was duo grinding actually, or technically trio grinding, and I had absolutely no competition for killing enemies. Now you may be thinking, well, why on earth would I just like wait around, like standing around doing nothing and waiting to get on a better layer? Well, what you can do is quest prep. You can do certain quests now, get them ready to turn in, run around Outland and turn them in, and then when you jump to Northrend, you should be on a better layer for solo leveling. Now, I've got a number of guides, you know, the best 25 quests to turn in. I've got one that's not really great for Death Knights, to be honest, because there's better options, and it's more for people who have like literally every single TBC quest turned in. If you subscribe to the channel, you can check that one out. My members have my really big one, which will get you 1.7 million XP. However, it's probably a bit late now to do all of the steps in that guide. But very soon this week, I will have basically the method that I'm doing, which is much faster, and I still think people would have time to do it. So stay tuned for that guide coming very soon. Now, for my last tip, if you're going to level in Frost, then you probably need to actually immediately get off your computer and book an appointment with your doctor to check whether you have brain damage or not, because Frost is a mage spec. Anyway guys, that is the end of the video there. My name is Metagoblin. To the next video, ciao.